Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnaprastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktitirtha Swaminatha Namine Namaste Krishnapadaya Prabhupada Shritatmane Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhaktitirtha Iti Namine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnaprastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminatha Namine Namaste Saraswat Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyovahat Pashyate Desatarine Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Nityananda Vadutendur Vasudha Pranavallabha Janava Jeevitapatihi Krishna Prema Prada Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Sriman Sachinandana Purvajaha Bhavonmatta Jagatrata Rakta Gaura Kalevaraha Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikeshendriyatmane Namah Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibratatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namah Namah Hiranyaviryaaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. Hare Krishna. So the previous week we started out with the fourth chapter, and one of the notable points we raised was that Krishna speaks here in the second verse, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyoho viduhu sakalaneha mahata yogo nashtaha parantapa. So what is very significant about this verse? What was very significant? What are the significant points in this verse? It is spoken to the Raja Rishis. What else? It is spoken to Raja Rishis, but it also is being delivered in disciplic succession. Right? Parampara praptam. So this is not something which is spoken randomly, which is available anywhere. It is received in the course of disciplic succession from one guru to a disciple and so on and so forth. And what is the definition of a disciple? What is the definition of a guru? Who is a proper guru? One who is a proper disciple is a proper guru. That's the primary qualification of a guru, is that he is a proper disciple. One who represents his guru and represents him in a manner where he is completely transparent and he is able to transmit the knowledge received by his guru without subverting it or without actually changing its meaning, is considered to be a proper guru. He is representing the parampara. And it need not be that the guru himself be fully delivered or fully self-realized and so on and so forth, because that is the primary qualification, which is the guru has to be self-realized. The idea is that a drowning man cannot save other drowning men and women because they need to be able to sustain themselves first. But the more important qualification is that whoever is a guru is following his guru and is a proper disciple. Because as long as he is able to deliver the truth spoken about in the Shastras without distortion, as long as he is able to represent the parampara by exactly sharing what the parampara has empowered him to share without distortion. He is fully capable of representing the parampara. This is the conclusion of the Shastras. This is the conclusion of the Acharyas. Okay? So, two different parts. One is it is coming in through the disciplic succession, and the second, more important part is these are all Raja Rishis who are receiving it. So, the disciplic succession starts with the sun, and the sun, Vivaswan, the sun god Vivaswan, he is the king of all planets. Surya is the king of all planets. So, he is a king. So, he basically also represents royalty, and the lineage of the passage of this knowledge is to from one royal personage to the other. So what is relevant here is that this is not knowledge which was just reserved for the yogis. This was not knowledge which was just reserved for those who are in a cave. This was knowledge which was passed on for those who were for those who were in and fully active in all for all walks of life. In the Grahastha Ashrama, fully active in all walks of life. So this was for those who are in the Grahastha Ashrama, who are active in all walks of life, who had the ability to influence and who played leadership roles. And who is a leader? Who is a leader? The king is a leader, yes, but who else? Whoever has responsibility over the lives of others is a leader. Simple definition. We should not complicate it. Whoever has responsibility over the lives of others is a leader. The father in the house is a leader. The mother is a leader. Right. So leadership is where we have the ability to influence the lives of others. Very simple. If you have the ability to influence the lives of others, then we are held at a higher standard. The Bhagavad Gita becomes fully applicable to us because this information that is being passed on in the Bhagavad Gita is specifically meant for those who are playing leadership roles. And for that matter, everyone is a leader. If you're leading a family, you are a leader. It's just not leading a country becomes a leader. Who leads a family is a leader. Who has the ability to influence is a leader. Very simple. So there is responsibility. There is responsibility, and there is responsibility that comes with authority. If you have the ability to lead the others, if you have the ability to influence the life of others, you better understand that you are a leader. You will be held to a higher standard. And this knowledge is being passed on specifically for leaders. That's why these are Raja Rishis. And what is a specific qualification of a leader as defined as a Raja Rishi? What is the specific qualification which is being brought forth here? The rishis, that's an identity, but what we are talking about here is we've always spoken about this. A Raja Rishi talks of two different identities, one of being a Raja and the other of being a Rishi. Two different identities. And these two identities are super important because he's performing the role of a Raja where he's influencing millions, billions. At the same time, he is a Rishi. That's his other identity. And what does it mean? The core identity is the identity of being Krishna's servant, which is Rishi. He never forgets the fact that he is Krishna's servant, and he understands that everything else that he is doing is a matter of him being able to also perform duties according to the desire of Krishna externally. So being a Raja, a Kshatriya is Varna. It's one of the Varnas. Kshatriya Varna is one of the Varnas. That is an identity. That's a duty. Being a Grahastha is an ashrama. But then those are vehicles which are secondary aspects. The core aspect that he is a rishi. So he has an identity of being Krishna's servant which is held in the center. And he is executing his duties of being a king. What is the biggest challenge which most of us face? What is the challenge we face in this identity crisis? Because our priorities are constantly changing. We have multiple identities, and the secondary gauna, the secondary identities of being a man, woman, professional, father, mother, so on and so forth, they constantly dominate and try to take center stage, pushing away the identity of being Krishna's servant. Right? They're constantly taking center stage because our lives have been complicated. We have complicated our lives, as a result of which the slightest change in our life forces us to push Krishna away from the center, and whatever else has to take center stage comes to center stage. Being a professional comes to center stage. Needing money comes to center stage. Krishna has to move away because we have created a lifestyle that is so complicated that at the slightest pretext, at the slightest change, we are helplessly making a change in our priorities. Now imagine the complexity of being a king. A king is someone who walks into the palace, he walks into the courtroom, and you have thousands of people bowing down. He is called the representative of God, he is worshipped as God. All the demigods are supposed to be resident in his body, which is a Shastric definition of Raja. Those days, reason why he was representative of God and he was considered to be God was because all the demigods were in his body. They were helping him execute their commands because he was given the power. He was sitting on a throne and he was able to execute the commands of the demigods. Right? So he was given such power. Imagine someone who was extraordinarily powerful, who is constantly being reminded that he is extraordinarily powerful, who is constantly being told that he is the greatest, he is worshipable, he is, the greatest person, and every one of us depend on you, so on and so forth. Can you imagine what this does to the ego? Can you just slightly reflect on it as to what happens to the ego when a person is put into that stage? Now imagine how amazing is that even though a person has been put into such levels of complexity, he is still able to maintain his relationship with the Lord in center stage, and that is the main identity, and that is the Raja Rishi. Right? A Raja Rishi is powerful because despite the fact that he has so many complex roles to play, his identity of being Krishna's servant always remains in the forefront. That is never compromised. That is never compromised. It is not compromised because he is able to keep his identity of being Krishna's servant right in the forefront at all times. That is the beauty of a Raja Rishi. And this is a message for the Raja Rishis. It's extraordinarily important. Right? So Krishna is making that statement. This is a message for Raja Rishi. He is able to keep Krishna in the center while having an extraordinarily complex role. Imagine it is read in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the kings, they were yogis and they had Ashtasiddhis, the eight opulences, the mystic opulences. They used to attain it by their mystic practices before kingship, and once they sit on the throne, they used to have eight opulences, and they used to have such awesome power in controlling material energy. Awesome power in controlling the entire planet, the entire material energy used to be under their control. Even before a certain thought used to come in the minds of their subjects, they had the ability to arrest people at the thought level. Can you imagine how powerful they were? The king was so powerful because of his mystic opulences, because he was a yogi, he was a Rajarishi, he could arrest the consciousness of his subjects and steer them in the right direction. That was the awesome kind of power which a king had. Unbelievable. Unimaginable. Because he was empowered. He takes on the position of a king based on the orders of the Supreme Lord, and he assumes those powers, and those powers are given to him so that he could manage and he could actually manipulate material energy for the benefit of his kingdom. That was the level of power and freedom that was provided to the kings. Really awesome to even think about. And the Brahmanas, who were advisors to the king, were even more powerful because they used to protect the king. It is said that one Varna protects the other. The Brahmana protects the Kshatriya, literally. Because the Kshatriya's decision making is going to be based on the Brahminical influence. So he protects the Kshatriya by offering him proper advice. The Kshatriya protects the other subjects and then establishes dharma so that the Brahmana himself can exist. Very simple questions are asked in Arthashastra, right? Chanakya wrote Arthashastra. In Arthashastra, in other scriptures, in Manusmriti, very simple questions are asked about whether a kingdom is prosperous. The questions are, does do the weak in the sense that bodily weak, women, children, the aged, do they are they happy? Are they well protected? First question. Okay, that is how they judge a kingdom. Are the women, children, and old people, are they well protected? People who have to be protected, are they well protected? Do the subjects have the ability to perform worship? Sadhana. Can the subjects perform sadhana, or have you created a situation which is so complex that they do not have the ability to perform sadhana? Are they free of disease? Hmm? Are they free of disease? Is the responsibility of the king. Are they free of disease? Do they have everything? Is everything available in plenty? Okay. Very simple questions are asked to judge whether the king has potency and whether he is able to take decisions which are proper. Very simple questions. Because in a place where the weak or those who have to be protected are abused, the opposite occurs, then such a place is destined for doom. 100%. It's guaranteed that be it an institution, be it a family, be it a country, be it any place where those who are to be protected are not well protected, such an institution, country, such a king is ruined. He has absolutely no hopes. It is finished. He would be taken out, he would lose power. Because these are very, very fundamental aspects. Very fundamental aspects. Hmm? Are they able to perform worship? Are they able to perform sadhana? Right. Very simple questions. So kingship as such or ruling was defined by very simple parameters which could be assessed and people could very clearly take decisions based on the same, on whether the duties are being performed by the king. Right. Now you can make a very good assessment in countries. It is also said in the Shastra that if you do not have a proper king, it's a Shastric conclusion, if you do not have a proper king, do not get married. Do not accumulate wealth. Because if you do not have a proper king, there would be no security. Then getting married and maintaining a family becomes dangerous because you cannot protect them if there's danger. And then accumulating wealth is absolutely useless because there are going to be thieves because the king is not proper. So you read in the Srimad Bhagavatam that empowerment that was given to a king was so awesome that it was amazing. For example, you have the story of Vena, King Vena in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was very cruel, but the Brahmanas did not displace him because if you do not have a proper king in place, even though he is cruel, he was kept in place because he would be able to maintain order. Right? Do you see that in the Middle Eastern nations now, with the, what do you call it, the Arab Spring, the revolutions that are occurring in Libya, in Egypt? Every time one of those dictators fall, even when Saddam Hussein was toppled, he was a dictator. The moment he was toppled, there are riots. Everything goes out of order unless you have a proper person in place. So it's extraordinarily important for us to have proper infrastructure in place before even removing someone who is improper. Right? So there was a tremendous amount of consideration given to the position of leadership. And leadership is everything, practically. The choice of leadership is everything. Depending on the choice of a leader, the future of the entire country, the people, the population, the future generations, it's dependent on that. Purely based on leadership. Right? Haven't you have a question? Our history, do we have such kings? There were many kings, many kings. See, over the yugas, as the many yugas pass, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, there is deterioration. Krishna primarily allowed the Bhagavad Gita, sorry, the Kurukshetra to occur because the assembly was that all the kings were deviant, were opposite Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He practically allowed the annihilation of those in leadership positions who were not doing their duties. Right? So now you had the Pandavas, then there was Parikshit. Parikshit was the last king before Kali Yuga started. Right? Kali, Purusha, started walking in at the time of Parikshit. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, you have a mention of Chanakya, right? And also because that was the beginning of the Kali Yuga, where there was a tremendous amount of confusion, and there was a lot of what do you call it, strife, and then Buddhism was reigning strong, Jainism was reigning strong. There were a lot of changes in the hierarchy. So yes, there has been a lineage of kings who were absolutely powerful and who were divine, who were Rajarishis in our history. Right? Bharat Maharaj was a Rajarishi. When he was to resign his kingdom, very simple. See, this shows the thinking. The thinking is so beautifully exemplified by Bharat Maharaj's actions. When King Bharata decided that it was time for him to go to a forest, his choice, and he had just come back from Digvijay, he had just come back, he had conquered the entire planet, and then he decided that I have done my part, Dharma is going to be established, and it was allowed. Force was allowed so that you could have control. A proper Rajarishi who was properly situated, who was a surrendered soul at the lotus feet of Krishna, had the ability to control the planet, and he used to use force to bring control so that he could consolidate and then establish Dharma. So Bharata did that and he came back. And then what was his choice? Before he went back to the forest, he looked at all his sons and he said, none of them are qualified to succeed me. So he chose someone other than his sons to be a king because of his qualities, guna karma vibhagashaha. Very good judgment. Now this is the exemplary action of a Rajarishi. None of my sons are qualified. No lineage business. Now in India you see that in most places. Right? It's a lineage. Father, son, if everybody, one person becomes very powerful in the family, then naturally the others also aspire for power. Their positions are such, they have the right connections and they try moving up. But those days, this was a Rajarishi. Very good decision making. Okay, are you qualified? You are not qualified. Okay, you have no business to be in the position of a king. I will choose someone who is outside of it. There was his own, his wife, his mother, everybody were against it because for natural reason. They were against the fact that he was choosing someone outside of the family, but relentless. He went, he chose someone outside of the family to continue the kingship because he was very clear. He said that if you are not going to have the qualification, you will not be a king. You will not be occupying the throne. Completely duty bound. Now, tell me, is it possible if you assume the identity of any other identity other than the identity of Krishna to take that decision? Any other identity other than being a servant of Krishna, that decision would not have been possible. Now, being a servant of Krishna, someone is 100% wanting to please the Supreme Person and he is able to perform duties to the best extent. If he had assumed the role of a father, he could not have performed that particular duty. If he had assumed even the role of a king, he would not have even left because there would have been problems in him leaving because he would have been attached to the position of being a king. He assumed the role of a servant of the Lord, wanting and understanding that everything is the property of Krishna and we have to act according to his direction, act according to his mood. So immediately there is a mood of surrender, and Krishna, who is a super soul who is within, he is providing direction. Krishna provides direction when we allow him and we start listening. It's a fact. And this is applicable to everyone. When we are in the mood where we are honestly, sincerely offering prayers saying, I would like to surrender, I would like to act based upon what is most beneficial for you, for your pleasure, Krishna. Please guide me, please provide me with the intelligence. And you will find that the decision making that comes forth is very powerful. Simple prayers in the heart, and you will be able to take proper decisions. Prayer is extraordinarily powerful. Vandanam. Vandanam is an extraordinarily powerful medium. You should try that. I remember that we had a session called Prayerful Reading. It was given by someone we knew few years back. And what they had done was something quite extraordinary. They had taken around 50 or 60 verses or 80 verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. They had printed those verses with the meaning, just the meaning, not the purport, folded it into little bits of paper, put it in a basket, and then they passed it around, right? They passed it around, and the whole idea was everyone was asked to be in a prayerful mood before they received that particular piece of paper. And what was happening was, once you receive it, you start offering prayers to Srila Prabhupada, and then you have to be able to share realizations from that verse. The whole audience was given one verse. And it was so miraculous, right? It was so almost, it was mystical that by the mercy of the deities, every one of us received verses that were actually relevant, very significant to us. And it was shared that when you open the Bhagavad Gita, if you are able to wake up in the morning and then you are able to offer prayers to Srila Prabhupada, you are able to offer prayers to the Lord, before you open the Bhagavad Gita, offer prayers, and then open the Bhagavad Gita looking for a message for you to be able to act, you will see a message because your mood has been prayerful and you are ready to receive guidance, you will receive guidance. This is something that everyone should try. Prayerful, be very prayerful when you're trying to read. Because Shastra is alive. This is called transcendental knowledge. It is alive, right? It's not passive. So you pick it up, you offer prayers, and you open it, you're going to start receiving guidance. Because this is alive, right? That's the beauty of Shastra. So Krishna says the supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost. Right? The succession was broken, it appears to be lost. Right? Course of time, the succession was broken. Successions get broken over the course of time because time destroys everything. The knowledge is not destroyed, it is available. It's constantly present, but the succession gets broken because it gets distorted. So the disciple starts distorting the Guru's message, succession is broken. Right. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared, Lord Nityananda Ram, Haridas Thakur, they distributed the holy names in Navadvip all around. There was vibrant preaching by Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, right? And Shamananda Prabhu and Rasikananda Prabhu. There were so many different great personalities who were spreading the Krishna conscious culture in Bengal, throughout India. There were many who were taking extraordinary risks by traveling through forests, going around to be able to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And then there was Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Even by the time Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur came, that was 17th century or so, there was deterioration. There was deterioration because the attacks of the Muslims was heavy, and as a result of which the temples were broken, there was a lot of uprooting of culture, people were completely dispersed, and as a result of which, what was originally the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, it became a little more spread, it became dispersed here and there was a little bit of distortion, right? And then 1 century later, you had Baladev, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan, right? Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan, right? You had Baladev Vidyabhushan who had to re-establish Gaudiya Vaishnavism by proving that we have a Siddhanta. That was the time. I'm sorry. It was the time of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He took the blessings of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it is said. Right? So, what we notice again is by the time Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur was there and Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was there, this was 18th century, The whole teachings of Lord Chaitanya were completely distorted. There were groups of people who had completely distorted the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and people were following the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and they were engaging in sense gratification, right? What was it? Bowls and Sahajaya. Right. What is a Sahajaya? Sahajaya is someone who is trying to enter into sacred ground without being sufficiently sacred. Someone is not sacred, someone has not attained purity, but he is trying to enter into confidential topics, he is trying to enter into sacred grounds as if he is pure. Hmm? That is Sahajayism. So you had so many different distortions. I remember saying that in Bengal, probably mid 18th century, people did not know who was a Vaishnava. Vaishnava or pure Vaishnava teachings were so distorted because of deviance that everyone assumed that a Vaishnava was a deviant, period. They did not even know that there was purity and this is the highest pure knowledge because there was so much deviation in just a matter of 100 years or 200, 300 years from the Acharyas, from the Goswamis of Vrindavan, from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's period. Can you imagine what time does? It destroys, it distorts. Right. So this constant struggle is to constantly focus on the Shastric conclusions. You want to constantly come back and you want to be able to examine three different factors to understand that something is consistent. You have to examine Shastra. You'll have to examine whether the Guru is speaking the words of the Shastra. You'll have to examine whether the sadhus or practitioners are practicing the word of the Shastra. It again and again goes back to the tripod where these checks are constantly made to ensure that everybody is in line. Now, what is the beauty of and the power of purity of this particular line, the Siddhanta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? You cannot be deviant for long. That is a test of a system. What is the test of a proper system? The test of a proper system is that if you do not follow it, you will be exposed. It's a matter of time. If you become deviant when you're dealing with pure knowledge, it's just a matter of time before you will become exposed. What does it tell you? It tells you that the system works. It tells you that the system works because you have a system which you cannot cheat. You might be able to play games for a small period of time. In the relative sense, you would be able to distort for a certain period of time. But the system works and the person is exposed, or the persons are exposed and the knowledge is exposed, and then you have the true knowledge and the purity coming forth again and being re-established. Time and again, this happens over history where the true test of a system is where someone who is deviant cannot sustain it. You cannot sustain that practice. Krishna consciousness is not religion. Got to realize that. This is not like going to the Bridgewater temple once on a Sunday or any other mandir and just going there, offering prayers and coming back. This is not religion. Requesting God to solve our problems, ensuring that, please take care of this, please take care of that, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to have this vrata, that vrata, so that you could take care of me. Krishna consciousness, you cannot practice it that way. Krishna consciousness is serious business. It's very serious business. Right? There have been who great personalities who have basically not been able to sustain their Krishna consciousness at the slightest deviation. Going back to the time of, I think this was the time of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there was a very great personality by name Rupa Kaviraj. And Rupa Kaviraj was a Pandit. He could sit on the stage and discourse on the Srimad Bhagavatam wonderfully. And thousands of people used to attend the discourses. Right? He used to operate in the different parts of India, Vrindavan and Navadvip and those areas specifically. And in the audience, there were many people who used to come to listen to him because his oratory capacity and his ability to speak was just exemplary. And he was quite advanced. He was quite advanced. He was almost at the stage of experiencing advanced emotions. He was almost at the stage of bhav. Almost, right? Almost. He was experiencing some advanced levels of, realizations. So one day, he was speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam, and while he was speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam, everybody was appreciative. There was a very great Vaishnavi by name Krishna Priya Thakurani who walks into the assembly while he was giving a class on the Bhagavatam. So this great Vaishnavi, she's completely absorbed in chanting the holy names. She walks in and everybody there become a little bit, what do you call it? I wouldn't say disturbed. They become conscious of her presence. So they react to her presence by probably, acknowledging her presence, you know, um, bowing down to her and ensuring that, she is at least acknowledged in one way or the other. So Sri Rupa Kaviraj, who is giving a discourse, he notices this and he becomes infuriated that my class is getting disturbed. So he almost verbally he starts thinking and he starts speaking in such a manner that this person who is sentimental, she's walking in and she always used to constantly chant Krishna Priya Thakurani. Constantly the holy names will be on her lips. And he started speaking things where he became disturbed because she was disturbing his class. Right? And she was such an exalted Vaishnavi that he, even though he was very advanced, listen to this very carefully. I'm just showing you how distortion occurs in Shastric teachings. Even though he was quite advanced, right? There's always this concept of false pride, which hits you when you are receiving accolades and when you are in a position of being worshipped, when everybody is appreciating you. He basically started becoming inimical towards Krishna Priya Thakurani and her presence. And Vaishnava, advanced Vaishnavas, we have to be extraordinarily careful because their presence is a great blessing. At the same time, their presence is also can be a great curse. It's a double-edged sword if you do not know how to behave. Because it's extraordinarily dangerous when they're advanced. So he was basically speaking and he started insulting Krishna Priya Thakurani. And his fame continued. He continued receiving bigger gatherings. But he started distorting the philosophy after that. Every class of his, he started distorting the philosophy because intelligence was lost. What is the first aparad in chanting the holy names? To blaspheme the devotees. And what is the second aparad? To consider the names of demigods to be equal to the names of Krishna. So this is almost deviant philosophy which comes in. The third is Guru Aparad. The fourth is where you start blaspheming the Vedic literature. So now he was blaspheming the Vedic literature where he was twisting, turning, and presenting, but he still had the oratory capacity which was so powerful. So he still used to have a gathering which used to come. Right? So there were people who used to come and attend his classes. And finally, he became a Sahajiya because he started propounding philosophy which was completely the opposite of the Siddhanta. And it is said that he contracted leprosy. Leprosy is somehow it's a classic disease where we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that people who commit aparad, they contract leprosy. For some reason, leprosy is always emphasized on, probably because of the nature, it's painful, it seems to be a classic situation. So he contracted leprosy, he left his body, and he became a ghost. Imagine that he is a person who was so exalted that he was experiencing higher emotions. He was right at the top, and he becomes a ghost. And it all starts with the aparad to Vaishnavas. Krishna takes away all the opulence. The person becomes a deviant, starts propagating deviant philosophy, attracts followers who are attracted to such philosophy because they have to experience such. It is their karma. They go through it. There are no coincidences in spiritual life. Everything has a reason. There's a reason why we get attracted to whatever we get attracted to. We have to go through those experiences. They attract followers, big followings, and then it goes on, right? And then finally the person becomes a ghost. Interesting. Now he started offering a service with great repentance. And the service of Srila Rupa Kaviraj is that he would haunt whoever commits Vaishnava Aparad as a ghost. You had a question. Yeah. See, people don't realize that getting another body, human body, even though it may appear that there are 6 billion plus human beings on this planet, getting another human body is not a joke. One can say that 90% of those who leave their bodies spend time as a ghost. There is a ghostly existence is a part of life. Because they are not qualified to get themselves a body. The situation itself is so complex that they cannot be given a body. They got to wait. You literally have to wait for the karmic circumstances to form so that you could take birth. Right. So the person becomes a ghost. He could not get a body. Well, if you are meant to execute karma in a certain situation, so it's not like you can just go and do karma in some other body. If you're meant to execute karma in a certain kind of body, a certain kind of situation, certain kind of family, certain circumstances, then you end up waiting. Right? So the system gets broken. So there's a lot of disturbance, there's a lot of distortion which is caused because of these little acts. So I'm just giving you an example that ignorance enters into the parampara when it is represented by personalities who become offenders at the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, the carriers of mercy. And then the distortion starts, and then Krishna again intervenes in the form of sadhus. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur came back in mid-18th century. He practically re-established Gaudiya Vaishnavism. His son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so powerful that he established Sri Gaudiya Vaishnavism throughout India and dispatched his disciples to the west. And then finally you had our Prabhupada, who gave the Siddhanta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu practically to every town and village on the planet, following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is exactly how Krishna again protects his parampara. He protects the Siddhanta and he brings it back. But then he also is giving us a lesson saying that if there is deviation, it occurs due to a certain reason. Why should there be deviation? Deviation also has to have a reason. It starts with something. Right. So let's go to the third verse, which is Saevayam maya tedya yoga proktah puratana bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi eta uttamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. See, the beauty is this has writing and reading the Bhagavad Gita has nothing to do with scholarly knowledge. It has nothing to do with intelligence, mundane intelligence. There is this very beautiful incident which is spoken of, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went on a South India tour and he reached Sri Rangam. So in the Sri Rangam temple, just as he was entering the Sri Rangam temple, it's a beautiful temple even now. The mood in the Sri Rangam temple is exemplary. You can find a lot of bhakti. There are 7 concentric circles and then the sanctum is right within the seventh circle. There's practically a whole city which is around the temple, surrounds the temple. It's practically a city. You have seven different, gates. And the mood is like almost akin to when you enter into Navadvip, or when you enter into the ISKCON temples, where the focus is on bhakti and so on and so forth. There's a lot of focus on bhakti. Now, the Sri Rangam temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent quite a significant amount of time in Sri Rangam. And when he entered the Sri Rangam temple, he found a Brahmana who was making an attempt to read the Bhagavad Gita. But then he found that the Brahmana himself was holding the scripture upside down, literally, not in a position where he was reading it. It was not paper, but it was, palm leaves at the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one could see that it was not held in a position where he could possibly absorb what it was all about. But at the same time, he noticed that the Brahmana was crying, and at times he was smiling, he was elated. So there were all kinds of mixed emotions on the face of the Brahmana which bewildered the one who was seeing. And there were others who were laughing at him because of his position. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu questioned him, saying, What is it which is happening to you? Why is it that we see you laughing, we see you crying? What is the situation? So he said, I'm crying because I'm so unfortunate that I'm illiterate. My guru has ordered me to study the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, but I am illiterate. So I'm crying. It's an unfortunate position because I'm illiterate. I cannot read. But I'm also laughing, and I'm smiling, and I'm happy, and I'm ecstatic because I'm just ecstatic seeing the essence of the Bhagavad Gita and understanding it. And the essence is that Krishna, he is God. He is Bhagavan. He is Sampurna Bhagavan. He is the avatari. Every avatar has its origin from Krishna. Right? He is Purna Bhagavan. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. And he, how amazing is this, that he becomes a charioteer of his devotee. He takes on a lowly position of a charioteer of his devotee. And I'm just completely mystified, and I'm actually ecstatic by even understanding that Krishna can take on such a position. How amazing is this? Because a charioteer is someone, it is said that at the time of battle, you really do not have time. The kings used to literally kick the charioteer in one direction or the other, giving them an indication of which direction to go for the chariot. Like a left turn, right turn, because you're fighting battle. You don't even have time to give orders. He manages by kicking the charioteer to go left, go right. It's a very lowly position in terms of hierarchy. And here you have Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, the Supreme Lord, taking the position of a charioteer, and that is making me both cry and laugh in one sense because of the ecstasy, because of this wonderful quality. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have understood the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. This is bhakti. You have understood everything. You don't need to read. You have understood the essence. So the Bhagavad Gita is not so much about someone who can read. And you have seen it. You have seen that there are many, many translations of the Bhagavad Gita that are available in the world. And people translate the Bhagavad Gita for a specific reason. There's a strategy behind it. It is a very famous book. It's an easy way to get famous if you translate the Bhagavad Gita. It's easy, right? You pick up something which is so prominent, and then you write a translation, and it becomes your translation. Oh, person has translated the Bhagavad Gita. There are politicians who have translated the Bhagavad Gita. We know of them, right? The President of India, one of the former presidents of India, Radhakrishnan. There were many who translated the Bhagavad Gita. But what is the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Yatha Roop, which Srila Prabhupada wrote? What is so special about this Bhagavad Gita? Huh? As understood by a devotee. What else? What were you saying? He basically was able to represent the mood of Krishna. And what was the result? The thousands of Bhagavad Gitas that were written by other authors did not make devotees, my friends. The Bhagavad Gita, as it is, makes devotees. People pick it up, they read a couple of purports, they search for a temple, they want to take up Krishna consciousness, they want to transform their lives. Why? Because there is purity. There is purity involved here. The purpose is pure. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He understands the heart of the Lord. He represents the teachings of the Lord. Potency is maintained. And this potency has the ability to transform the lives of others. Most widely distributed Bhagavad Gita. Most widely read. There are devotees who just enter into a cab. I've given this example. People found a Bhagavad Gita, they just become transformed. They pick it up and then they start practicing and they don't even know where the temples are. They pick up the teachings and slowly, steadily they take on and they become devotees. So if true teachings are being represented clearly, automatically it has a very transformative effect on the reader. And that is the effect of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is saying, and he's proving the same thing in this verse. He's saying, you are my friend, you are my devotee. So the transcendental mystery of this particular book would be revealed to you. So transcendental knowledge, and what is transcendental knowledge again, the 4th chapter? What is it? What are the components of transcendental knowledge? Who is Krishna? Exactly. So, who am I? Because I need to know who I am. I cannot be in amnesia while understanding the whole world. I have to know who I am, right? Who am I? And who is Krishna? Who is God? What is the specific relationship I have with God? And what are the activities I perform in that relationship? This is transcendental knowledge. It's a transcendental mystery. How is it going to be revealed to a stranger? This is all about someone who is favorable. This is all about someone who wants to render devotional service in a complete mood of surrender. Srila Rupa Goswami defines it as Anya Bilashita Shunyam. There are no other Abhilashas for the person. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. He has given up the pursuits of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and Karma Kanda, fruitive activities. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. Anukulyena. It has to be favorable. Kamsa constantly talked about Krishna. Shishupala constantly talked about Krishna, but they were unfavorable. They gave pleasure to Krishna too, by the way. You know that. Both Kamsa and Shishupala, all the demons, they gave pleasure to Krishna by allowing him to express his valor. So, chivalry, that was not an issue. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam, Anukulyena favorable. In a favorable manner, they have to render devotional service. And that is called Bhakti Uttama. That is called pure Bhakti. So the transcendental mystery is being revealed to one who has this objective in their mind. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna, I want to serve you. You are my beloved. I want to serve you. I have a favorable stance towards you. I want to serve you. Knowledge starts getting revealed. I want to serve you comes and Krishna starts showing, okay, here's how you have to serve me. Here's how you have to serve me. So it's very important to begin service. It's extraordinarily important to start serving Krishna. Once you start serving Krishna, he would start directing our intelligence, saying, I don't like this, I don't like that. Increase some salt, reduce the pepper, do whatever you need to do, keep it fresh. He would give us the intelligence. Because our intelligence is, let us begin serving. That's why we clearly say that do not change your habits. If you have to do anything, start serving. Krishna will give you intelligence to give up what you need to give up. He would know how to control. He is the Supreme Lord. He is in everybody's heart. He gives instructions. I don't like this. I like this. Do it this way. Do it that way. He will make all arrangements he wants. We have to start beginning to serve. By beginning to serve, we are establishing our intention to move forward in that relationship. When you start serving, you start becoming attached to the person you are serving. Right? So the beginning of the relationship is you have to establish a service connection. You have to establish a service connection. Do something small. Do something small. It can be insignificant. Perfectly fine. It can be insignificant. Easiest service for Krishna, one is to accept Krishna prasadam, but first you have to cook and offer to him, right? Cook nicely. I had a god brother of mine. He and I got the second initiation on the same day. Sundara Varada. I think he was from Brazil. He was from South America. He came and then he traveled with me from Gitanagari back to our home in 2005, 2004, 2005. And at that time, young person, he's a brahmachari, so he has a very good appetite. And I didn't have the mood to eat, but he wanted to eat. And he always used to say that, I always like prasadam, and he used to say, I cook very nicely, I offer, I honor. He used to cook very nicely, I offer, I honor. Young person, cook pasta, cook this, cook that, I offer, I will honor. I don't need help from anybody. That's it, right? I remember that very clearly, where he was telling me that with a lot of enthusiasm about cooking, offering, and accepting. Very enthusiastic. So you could also, that's exactly very enthusiastic about this whole service because that's such a special service that you start cooking. You know, we don't eat. Do you realize that we don't eat unless you have an intimate connection with someone? Of course, these days the concept of hotels and restaurants is in place, but those days it was you don't eat in someone's house unless you have an intimate relationship. So eating is actually a very intimate activity. It is. It's not something which is just to be taken so lightly. It is quite an intimate activity. It is done with people who you love, who you have close affection for. You do not engage in eating anywhere, everywhere with everyone. It's quite an intimate activity. So when we start establishing this whole process of just offering something that we cook, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to change your style. Offer whatever you cook to the Lord. He will give you intelligence. Establish the service connection. He would improve. He would allow you to improve on it. Once we start offering and once He starts improving, then the service connection is accepted. The other easiest way to serve is to chant the holy names. What is chanting? Chanting is nothing but a service, the prayer for service. See, we all have a propensity for sukha. What is sukha? Happiness, pleasure. We all have a propensity for pleasure because we are pleasure seekers by nature. Now, what the Mahamantra does is that we are calling out the names of Krishna. The Mahamantra purifies our propensity for pleasure, where it replaces our propensity for pleasure, it removes our propensity for pleasure and focus on the senses and replaces those with Krishna. The Mahamantra very effectively does that by engaging us in the service of the Lord, by engaging our senses in the service of the Lord. Do you understand what I was just saying now? Practically, the Mahamantra is a prayer for service. We have an aspiration for happiness. We are seeking happiness through different avenues. The Mahamantra practically transforms those avenues into connections with Krishna. So you have opportunities to serve. So very simple. Offer bhoga, accept Krishna prasadam, service. Call out the holy names of the Lord, it is service. Calling out the holy names of the Lord is you're glorifying Him. Glorifying Him is a very special service. Shravanam, Shravanam, you hear, it begins with hearing. Sacrifice the process of hearing. And then you have Kirtanam, which is everything. Practically, after hearing, the way we transform ourselves and we start acting, be it in the home, be it while worshipping the deity, be it while offering bhoga, be it while chanting, and also while being at work, while dealing with the world. It is all Kirtanam based on Shravanam. Keeping Krishna in the center, the Raja Rishis were performing Kirtan. They were keeping Krishna in the center and ruling the kingdom. It was Kirtan. And what is the result of Shravanam and Kirtanam? What happens next? Smaranam. Krishna Smaranam is not a forced activity. It is not something where you constantly force your mind to think about Krishna. No. Krishna Smaranam occurs naturally, is actually an advanced stage where there is proper Shravanam, there is proper Kirtanam, Smaranam will be automatic. Smaranam is automatic. Remembrance will be automatic when there is proper Shravanam, when there is proper Kirtanam. Srila Prabhupada used to say, put your energy in hearing. While you chant the holy names, hear. Put your energy in hearing and offer Kirtanam, chant the holy names. Do not worry about Smaranam. Right? Do not worry about Smaranam. Smaranam is not something that we want to worry about now. We don't want to start imagining Krishna one way or the other because our own imagination is distorted. Oh, maybe Krishna has this Leela, maybe this, maybe that. There's no need. Just focus on Shravanam, focus on Kirtanam. Smaranam will come when the time comes. Until then, put your energy in Shravanam, Kirtanam. Chant, hear your chanting. Chant, hear your chanting. That's how it works. Okay? So automatically then you're entering service, the transcendental relationship starts unfolding. It starts getting revealed. We start making progress. And this is not done by force. One cannot understand the Bhagavad Gita. One understands the Bhagavad Gita because they are devotees and they are friends. And that's the reason why we begin by saying that learn to become prayerful by reading the Bhagavad Gita. Prayerful reading of the Bhagavad Gita is extraordinarily important. Pick up the Bhagavad Gita, offer prayers before you open it. You will have a message from Krishna. You will be able to understand the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Right. So I think we'll stop here. Any questions? Yes, everything else will follow. Everything else will follow. See, any one of these processes is fully capable of delivering us. Of the 9 different forms of devotional service, any one of them done perfectly well is fully capable of delivering us. That's the reason why you have those 9 exemplary devotees who follow those 9 different processes exemplarily well. But being in Kali Yuga, we don't have the ability to do any one of those services properly to the fullest extent. So we end up doing everything. So there is Padasevanam, there is Archanam, there is, different kinds of activities which are a part of our daily retinue. But the most important part is, just as in any other case, there is a certain order. You begin with Shravanam. So you hear about the glories of the Lord, you hear about the process, and you start following the process, Shravanam. And then you perform kirtan. Kirtan is action based on Shravanam, not based on our own distortion, our own speculation. And automatically Smaranam occurs. It is not something that we have to put in special effort for. So some people, for instance, you can take it up specifically in chanting. Some people, while you're chanting, constantly they're trying to bring Krishna into the center of their focus. Constantly trying to bring Krishna into the center of their focus while chanting. Oh, can I see and visualize Krishna? I've heard of this from many devotees. Prabhu, I'm trying to visualize Krishna while I'm chanting. The fact is, no. No. Don't try doing that. Prabhupada's instructions are Shravanam, Kirtanam. Hear your chanting and chant carefully. Ensure that the pronunciation is right. Ensure that the quality of the chanting is right. Constantly hear and focus on the pronunciation and how we are calling out the names. While the heart becomes purified and the lotus in the heart opens up where we start learning who we are in relationship to Krishna, Smaranam will occur automatically. It's not something that need to be forced. It's not something where we need to constantly worry about saying, I can't remember. Anything else? You can see very simply, you can offer prayers from the heart. Prayers from the heart would be that, Srila Prabhupada, please bestow your mercy upon me because I, on my own, do not have the intelligence to understand either your purports or anything that's been written here, any transcendental knowledge. Please bestow your mercy upon me so that I may be able to understand your message and become a better servant so that I could serve you. Right? Now, it's a very simple message. Now, this message, while we are chanting it itself, we may not be sincere. Right? Some devotees do say that, Prabhu, when I'm offering prayers, I don't think I'm sincere because I feel as if I'm just being mechanically repeating something. In other words, I'm making a statement that I'm not fully accepting. I'm making a statement where even I don't believe fully that I should be making the statement. Perfectly all right. It's okay if we make that statement even though we don't fully accept it because our attempt is being recognized by the super soul, and the super soul who is within Krishna, he will provide us with the intelligence and the impetus to become sincere. Do you understand? So we start out with something simple. So you can write down such a thing in a piece of paper, reflect on it, write down such a thing on a piece of paper. It could be very simple. It could be 3 lines, 4 lines, right? My spiritual master had a very simple prayer to offer, and this is a very simple but super extraordinarily powerful prayer. And his prayer was, Krishna, dear Lord, please give me whatever I need for me to become a better servant of Srila Prabhupada. Please take away whatever needs to be taken away from me for me to become a better servant of Srila Prabhupada. Just 2 lines, right? But extraordinarily powerful because you're practically telling Krishna, rearrange my life. I have so many aspects of my life which are preventing me from surrender, which are keeping me away, which is not allowing me to keep you in the center. So make arrangements, rearrange my life. I'm giving the keys to you. Very simple prayer, but it's extraordinarily potent. If someone starts chanting this prayer early in the morning and then they get out, anything that occurs to them during the day, they would have a full realization that it is Krishna's arrangement. Oh, I offered that prayer in the morning. They would be able to see very clearly that there's some special arrangement which has been made. Anything else? See, advanced in station essentially means that someone who has been able to steadily follow the practice, who is able to exemplify, who is able to walk their talk, right? That is advanced. In this way, they are able to exemplify, they are able to repeat the Guru's words, they are surrendered to the spiritual master, they are surrendered to the parampara. Now, it is very so we may not be able to find someone, or rather, we don't want to become judgmental, right? But Srila Rupa Goswami does advise us discrimination in his Upadeshamrita. One has to be able to recognize who is a Kanishta, who is a Madhyama, who is a Uttama. Because by recognizing, we will know exactly how to behave with them. We will have to recognize our station. We will have to find out who is on our level, who is junior to us, who is senior to us. Someone who is junior to us, we offer them protection. We encourage them. We bring them in line. We try to offer them all help, right? Someone who is on our level, we behave as friends. We take peers. We support each other. Someone who is advanced, we serve them. Right? So there is a certain modicum of behavior for each and every level in the Vaishnava theology, and it is easy to recognize the levels because it is you can recognize it by way of recognizing whoever is able to inspire action, whoever is able to guide, right, and simply whoever has put in a greater number of years than we have in the practice, right? So you can recognize it at any given time. So it's not much of a challenge. So, but discrimination is required, right? Discrimination is required. We also, it is our responsibility. It is said in the Shastras. It is our responsibility to, for example, it is a guru's responsibility to accept proper disciples. It is a disciple's responsibility to choose a proper guru. The guru can reject a disciple. The disciple can reject a guru, but on conditions where the guru is moving away from Shastra, moving away from the lineage, moving away from the parampara. Solid grounds, not whimsical grounds. Right? Whimsical grounds means it becomes dangerous. So there are guidelines, but one thing which I want to reply to your question, which goes back again to an earlier statement that I made in today's class. The guidance that we receive in our life is going to be based on our sincerity. Please understand, the reason why I made a statement saying Krishna consciousness is not religion is because Krishna is in the heart. He understands us. If sincerely our entire motive is wanting to come close to Krishna and to be able to serve Him, He will give us the intelligence. And He makes that promise in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that I would provide the intelligence, I would provide the means for those who want to render devotional service to me. If they are sincere in their hearts and He is dwelling in their hearts, He would show, go here, go there. He would make all the arrangements. If we are sincere and we offer prayers to Krishna, saying, do whatever it means, Krishna, for me to come closer to you, take away whatever needs to be taken away, give me whatever needs to be given, then we would be able to accept every experience of ours as a stepping stone to come closer to Krishna. You realize? So there are two sides to it. So one has to be sincere. If one is sincere, then everything works out well. And sincerity is not a big deal. Sincerity is where we are constantly focused on the goal. Most people do not even know what their goals are. We spend 15, 20 years in Krishna consciousness, we do not even know what our goal is. What are we trying to attain? What is the purpose of Krishna consciousness? We do not know. That's the challenge. Yeah. Keeping Krishna in the center, yes. Hmm. It can be dangerous that he might. Well, what was your prayer? What was your prayer? Go back. What was your prayer? No, not your prayer. The prayer that you're talking about right now. What is the prayer that you're talking about? Saying, please take away whatever needs to be taken away from me for me to be a better servant of Srila Prabhupada. Give me whatever needs to be given for me to be a better servant of Srila Prabhupada. Right? One way or the other, being a better servant of Srila Prabhupada means our coming to understand who we are, our coming to understand who is Krishna, understanding our relationship. So, if there is something in our life which is actually blocking that particular process, right, that is going to get removed. Not everything is going to get removed and we're going to be bereft. I understand. See, one thing is very clear. In any particular process of surrender, one will feel a little bit of fear because there is surrender. Surrender means there will be a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety. But the more and more and more we surrender, and we feel that the surrender is actually great protection, then we will be able to surrender more and more and more. In other words, it is by experience. Right? So Krishna, his plan is to bring us closer to him. Our plan is to get close to him, and we make these prayers in that mood, and he will make all the arrangements. So we don't have to worry about, oh, this might happen, that might happen, this could happen, that could happen. No, that's not our concern here. Those fears might exactly be what needs to be removed from our hearts. Fear needs to be removed from our hearts, and those fears will be removed. Right? You can. You can say Krishna better, yes, of course. No, no, that's fine. If you feel that way, it's perfectly all right for you to make this. You have not still come to the point where you are able to kind of develop that particular bond. That's fine. You can say Krishna. I was talking about my Guru Maharaj because it is his Guru, so he already had the bond, so he could speak. When I'm offering such prayers, I could probably be saying about my Guru Maharaj, right? So it's perfectly all right. You could use the word, I mean, you could say Krishna, whatever is going to help me come closer to you, that's fine. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki.